The next item on the agenda is the resolution to exclude the public, and I will just...
Oh, hang on, we've got the waste minimisation.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I've just gone straight to number 8 when in fact it's number 12. So item number 12, waste management and minimisation plan review, which is a supplementary paper, as was mentioned before, and I'll hand over to you, Pauline, to introduce the paper.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. So Council has a statutory requirement to revise the waste minimisation and management plan every 6 years, and so staff began this work in 2019. We did receive a council briefing on this in February, but things have been rather disrupted since then. This report actually just is actually for noting the progress and the work stream here and the time frame. There's a lot of challenges with this program, with the current system that we use, including service viability, inconsistent understandings by the public, linear consumption, which should be explained in the report. But also, along with this, we've got some opportunities and that can be turned into actions, just things like working with Target Sustainability to develop a zero waste business recognition, reduce planned obsolescence, get some programs going with that. The education aspect of this is really important. I think the Gold Star on the recycling bins was a very successful project that actually has just been suspended momentarily, but it will be back. And also embracing new technologies, looking at onshore processing, working together in partnership with industry and community, reviewing opportunities for energy from waste technologies. And one of the big focuses of this is the opportunity where we can include a transition to a circular economy rather than the linear one that we have now, which means that it's a whole life cycle and waste is actually a resource. So the 2020 plan includes the vision, goals, targets, actions and funding sources. Staff are working under very challenging timeframes here, and of course you'll see that timeframe in the report on page 6. There will be a special consultative process, I believe, that will have to be engaged in, and staff have suggested perhaps we set up a working group for this, which I'd be happy to be part of if that was the will of the council. So I'm happy to move this today as receiving this information.
So, Pauline, when will the next report come back to us? The timeline's there and the milestones, isn't it? There's a second workshop or a briefing in May.
Yes, which was supposed to be earlier, I think. So I don't know if the staff have got those exact dates. That might be a good question to ask staff today because, as I say, it's challenging.
All right. Well, perhaps who have we got? Is that Ross Trotter assisting us today?
It does say interim report to my committee in June, but I'm not... and the notice we've had is our committee won't meet till July, but whether that's changed, I don't know.
Oh, no, it will change because as soon as we've got our report on the re-establishment of committees and the way forward, I don't think we've made a firm decision we haven't actually made a firm decision as to when that will happen. So, so that report's going to come next week. So, Ross, are you there? Is it you that's doing this? No? Dave Adamson?
Teresa?
Anyone?
Can you hear me now?
Who's that? Is that Ross?
Ross Trotter here.
Hi, Ross. If you could just run through the timeline for this.
Yeah, sure. So the draft will be in July. So we've got consultation document delivered to ELT. So that'll be the draft before it goes out to public consultation.
So are we behind the timeline that we would normally be operating under, and what are the consequences of that?
Yeah, but this time frame has been communicated through to the Ministry for Environment. They recognise and understand that because there's been significant change through various reasons that we are working through to get the best information we can and into the plan. Actually, the plan itself will be slightly different to what we've had previously, in that we will have an action plan that we will update annually, because we don't expect that the plan will be able to last for 6 years. Previously, the 2013 plan has been something that we've worked through over for the 6 years, but we think with so much change, it'll be something that we need to update. So we are having an action plan that will be updated annually as part of that plan.
So what were the significant changes that means that we're not in with the time frame? Because I mean, it's 2013, the last one.
Yeah.
The review's required to be done within 6 years. Well, that's last year. So how did we get into that situation, and what are the significant changes that you're referring to?
Yeah, so the review was completed in 2019. The waste, we actually do waste audits as part of the waste assessment, which is the attachment to the report, which is in line with the review of in the 6 year time frame. The significant changes that we've had are the changes to mainly to the international markets and the recycling markets, the ability for us to continue with what has been the practice of moving material offshore. So we've been working with the ministry in those areas to try and develop onshore solutions, more circular economy solutions. So that's what we've been building into the plan, that we have quite a robust way of dealing with those waste materials in the future. So that sort of has delayed us in the sense of having a firm direction that we're going to, hey, this is what we want to adopt, and this is the direction we're going, because things are changing so much. And that's why I'm saying we are going to have an ability to review on an annual basis an action plan in terms of what is the best way forward annually.
Thank you very much for that, Ross, because that is just such a clear and succinct summary of the situation that we're in. We've complied with the requirements in terms of the review obligations and are working with MFE, given the challenges that we are facing with respect to our international markets and other factors that are impacting on us. So thank you for that. Jimmy Chen, you had a question.
Oh, yes, I have one question. This waste management minimization issue is not only in our city, actually it's across the boundaries, the Canterbury region. I'm not sure regarding to our reviewing our assessment of the future new plan, whether we'll have a consultation to our neighboring councils also can review and feedback to us.
Yes, so we have engaged with other Canterbury regional councils at chief executive level to see if in the future there was an appetite to look at a regional plan, given that some of the solutions that we may be working towards will be on a regional basis. So yes, that has been initiated, and there has been acknowledgement for participation by all the councils in Canterbury.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ross. I haven't got any more questions. Oh, yes, I have. Yanni.
Thank you. I'm just looking at 3.6. I'm just trying to understand why the need for this to come as a late supplementary. So my understanding is we've done the review within the 6 year time frame. So are we, what's the urgency? Why couldn't this have come next week or the week after?
The part of what was driving is really just to meet the legislative requirements that are detailed that we need to have reviewed, we need to have done the waste audits, and we need to have done the waste assessment. So it's really formally acknowledging that is being completed to meet the requirements under the Waste Act.
Sorry. I'm sorry, when was that due under the Waste Act? When does this need to be done by?
Apologies, I missed that, Yanni.
I was just trying to understand, what is the legislative requirement date that we're working towards?
We'd meet all the milestones required under the Act. So, and we have advised the Ministry of the time frame for completing the new plan. The Act requires that the review to be completed within 6 years. It doesn't really stipulate a time frame in having a new plan.
So we met the review. We did it by the 11th of September 2019. So there's no urgency of this being on the council meeting agenda today, rather than next week or the week after.
No, that's not true, Yanni. If you listen to his answer, he said that we had to sign off the fact that these two processes had been completed as a council so that we can formally submit that to the MFE. That's what I heard you say, Ross, so maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
It's not a legislative requirement. We've already completed that.
It is a legislative requirement. The MFE have asked for it. But Ross, perhaps you could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you correct me. It is the MFE that are requiring that be completed formally.
So what's the time frame they've given us to complete it?
Last week, the week before, last month, the month before. You know, I mean, it is overdue, but the work isn't overdue, if you understand what I mean. This is simply a technical obligation that we need to fulfil as a council, which is to sign off on the fact that both the audits and the assessments have been done.
Okay, well, there's nothing in the report that shows what's overdue or why the urgency exists. So it would be good to have that recorded. Can I just check, we did have a workshop or some sort of, it may have been at the committee, we had some sort of briefing on waste not too long ago, before the March restrictions came in for COVID-19, but I can't see any reference to that in this paper, and I was just trying to understand where that got to. It may have been a report back, I guess a normal committee report back on waste, but there was a number of questions or information that was raised, and I don't see that reflected in this report. So I was just trying to understand the different processes that we're going through considering the future of waste.
So there was a briefing to elected members in February, and that outlined the current situation and the approach for the new plan, the stakeholder involvement, and the next steps of what we were doing there. So that was in relation to the new plan. So this other work had been completed. This is to formalise that acknowledgement that work has been completed by the council, and that we are proceeding with the development of the new plan.
Sorry, is there a record of what was discussed and what the outcome of that workshop was?
There was a presentation. I'm not sure of what was recorded from there.
Yeah, I think that would be quite helpful, because a lot of this background stuff in this report is around the plan. So just the final question for me really is, in terms of the information that we've got today, what's the chance or the opportunity for us to feed in around things like the issue of glass recycling? I know previously when we've discussed it, something that's come up is around future contracts, for example. So if we agree to this today, where does that give us the opportunity to feed in of things that we've previously raised formally?
Okay, because there'll be a second workshop in the timeline there. There's a second workshop scheduled for elected members in May. Right. But we also will be out for review and consultation, so there'll be ability to feed into that at any point.
Sorry, do we sign off on this before it goes out for consultation?
The draft would need to be, yes, it would need to be, well, actually, the process, I don't know if we've got Teresa on board with us in terms of the exact process around that, but whether it's actually a sign-off or it just goes out to the special consultative process.
I personally think it'd be good just to clarify that. Workshop with elected members to give feedback around issues that have been raised, and then a report to formalise it and sign it off to go out for consultation. But it just wasn't clear from the milestones on 3.6. So I think it'd be good
I think that's a fair comment. I mean, in an ideal world, the Three Waters Infrastructure and Environment Committee would be dealing with this. But it does have implications for the Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee as well. So I really want councillors to apply their minds to these issues because they are very serious, as you've raised. So I'm very keen for us to really make sure that we're grounded in a good result here, because the solutions that we're faced with at the moment are just not ideal. I mean, we're locked into international markets, and we're going to have to become much more resilient and self-sufficient. And I know that's people's favourite word, but we do. So I think that in terms of the next steps, I think we probably need to have that drilled down a little bit further. I'm personally thinking that workshop needs to wait until we're in level 2, Ross. The reason is that we actually do need to sit down and nut this out, and doing so by way of a briefing on a conference call like this just isn't satisfactory. We do need to get in a room and thrash it out, and have the Pauline and the her team sort of take a bit of a lead in that space. So and also Sarah and the role that she's got. So if I just in terms of the resolutions, I think that we've agreed that the review has happened. We've agreed that you've completed the waste assessment. You note that there will be a further report to council to adopt a waste management and minimisation plan. And that we're noting the process and the timeframes. I think the timeframes that we're only noting them. I think they will be adjusted to meet our obligations at the same time as ensuring that we've got good input and a good decision-making framework before it goes out for public consultation. So, Pauline, you've moved that. Who seconded it? No one? Oh, sorry. There was a question from Aaron.
Yeah, hi, Ross. Just looking through the report, page 22 had a breakdown of the red bin audit by items, which was really useful. Do we have the same for the yellow lid bin?
No, not for the purposes of this with the waste audits. So we have the red bin, and then we also have what went directly into the transfer stations. The reason for that is to actually get the percentage breakdown of the types of waste that potentially we could be recovering. So the assumption is that the recycling has already been captured as being diverted from landfill.
Okay, so then that brings me to my next question, that ever since we started recycling, the number has gone down every year. The graph on page 13 shows from 2010 to right through, it just keeps falling, the amount of recycling. Of that, how much is actually being recycled of what's going in the yellow bin? It would be really good to see a breakdown of numbers of actual recycling.
Oh, look, I can answer that very simply. Up until COVID-19, everything that goes into the recycling bin as not contamination, and we do have a contamination level of between 6 to 10%, but every recycled item is actually processed and sold into various markets. Unfortunately, since COVID-19, the waste paper market which is unfortunately reliant on an international market, we don't have the access to those international ports at the moment.
So we're not, okay, so that's paper out. Well, the other heavy one is glass.
Yes.
Who are we selling the glass to?
That is, look, I'm not sure if there is a company purchasing it. I don't know if I'm able to mention the company. I don't know if it's a contract with EcoCentral, but there is a company that is purchasing all that glass.
And is that being recycled? Because I got told it was being crushed up and just mixed with gravel and dumped under roads, which would not be the definition of recycling. That would be dumping.
Yep, it's actually, you're right, it's used for base course in roading. So that is the purpose of that. I mean, I could go into the detail of why that contract has been established, but I don't know if this is the right appropriate forum, but it was previously going up to Auckland to be reprocessed, but it became uneconomic. But yeah, there's a bit of history around that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it'd be good to, when the Mayor says when we get in the room and thrash it out, if we can get all of those details at that point, because from feedback I've had from the public, their expectation is when they put glass in that bin, that it turns into another glass product, not get dumped under a road. The only saving there is it doesn't go all the way to Cape Valley, I think, is the only environmental payoff. Because there's, from every roading contractor I've spoke to, there's no beneficial reason for putting glass in gravel. So it doesn't do anything. It's not like it makes the gravel more special or something.
Yeah,
Can I
look,
just jump
great.
in there and say that James and I have got a meeting with staff next week to talk about this.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
okay.
I'll look forward to the update.
But I do think that what Aaron's raising is absolutely right, and it needs to be brought to attention of all councillors in a sort of considered workshop format, and then find a public-facing way of sharing that information. Phil Major, question?
Yeah, hi guys. Aaron's sort of asked the question that I was going to ask, but just so I'm on the same wavelength, we don't. Putting this through today has no difference on what we do with this workshop next week. We can really drill into it and come up with ideas on how we can move glass somewhere else or get paper cleaner and stuff. This what we're voting on today has nothing to do with.
No, it's a technical report that enables us to comply with a legal requirement of MFE.
Okay, so we can get into it with Pauline and James next week, or
Absolutely.
whenever it is.
Well, it won't be next week, but they're having a workshop. They're having a discussion next week with staff, and I think that's going to help set up the workshop. But I do think we need to get in a room. I just don't think that we need to do it this way, because I think it's unsatisfactory from everyone's perspective. So I've got this moved. Is there a seconder for it? Sarah Templeton. So that's been moved and seconded. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
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 Those opposed
Aye.
say no. That's carried. Thank you very
I'll
much.
just abstain. I don't agree with this being on the agenda today, so I'll just
Okay,
abstain.
no,
Thanks.
and that's fair enough. You raised that before. So abstention recorded for Councillor Johansson. Thank you.